Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment. I want you to hear this not with your ears, but with your spirit. We are standing at the door of a brand new year, and I need you to understand something very clearly. 2026 does not need an announcement from you. It needs a decision. Too many people talk their plans out loud, explain their dreams to people who don't even believe in themselves, and then wonder why nothing ever happens. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you save energy. When you stop arguing with people who don't see your vision, you protect your peace. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing, smile, and keep working. See, a lot of folks think they need validation before they move. They want applause before they take a step. But let me tell you something I've learned in my life. The loudest success I ever had came from quiet seasons no one saw. While people were laughing, doubting, and counting me out, I was working. I was failing. I was learning. I was growing. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your process. Your job in 2026 is not to convince people you're changing. Your job is to change. Let the results speak so loudly that your silence makes sense later. Now listen to me closely. Focus on you. Not on what they're doing, not on what they're posting, not on how fast they seem to be winning. Comparison is one of the quickest ways to lose momentum. God made you original, not a copy. Your pace is your pace. Your path is your path. When you focus on you, you start making better decisions. You wake up with intention. You invest your time wisely. You stop wasting hours trying to impress people who won't show up when you're tired, broke, or confused. In 2026, your focus has to be so sharp that distractions feel uncomfortable. Let me talk to you about silence, because silence is one of the most misunderstood powers you will ever have. People think when you go quiet, you are losing. They think if you're not explaining yourself, defending yourself, or announcing your next move, you must be confused or afraid. But that's not true at all. Silence is what happens when you finally understand yourself. Silence is what happens when you are so clear about where you're going that you don't need approval, permission, or applause. When you stop talking so much, you start hearing better. You hear your instincts. You hear God. You hear the truth about what needs to change in your life. Most people talk too much about what they're going to do and not enough about what they're willing to sacrifice. They announce goals they haven't committed to, dreams they haven't worked for, and plans they haven't prepared for. And every time you talk without action, you leak energy. You give people access to something that's still fragile. Dreams need protection in the early stages. They need time. They need focus. They need work in private. Silence keeps your vision safe from doubt, from negativity, and from people who don't understand the cost of what you're trying to build. When you move in silence, you stop arguing with opinions that don't matter. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who already decided how they feel about you. That right there is freedom. Because the truth is, some people will never clap for you, no matter how hard you work. Some people benefit from you staying the same. Your growth threatens their comfort. Your discipline exposes their excuses. So instead of explaining yourself, you let your consistency do the talking. You let your results speak when the time is right. Silence also forces you to face yourself. No distractions. No noise, no crowd to hide behind. Just you and your habits. Just you and your choices. And that's uncomfortable. That's why people stay busy talking, scrolling, and reacting. Because stillness requires honesty. It asks you hard questions. Why are you really stuck? Why do you keep repeating the same cycle? Why do you start strong and quit when it gets difficult? In silence, you can't blame anyone else. You either grow or you stay the same. There is power in not responding to everything. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every challenge deserves your reaction. Energy is currency. Where you spend it determines what grows in your life. When you stop reacting emotionally to everything, you gain control. Control over your time. Control over your focus. Control over your future. Silence teaches patience, and patience builds wisdom. You begin to understand that timing matters just as much as effort. When you're quiet, you become observant. You start noticing patterns. You see who's genuine and who's just curious. You see who supports you in the dark and who only shows up when the lights are on. Silence sharpens discernment. It teaches you when to move and when to wait. It teaches you that sometimes the best response is improvement. Sometimes the best comeback is success. Silence doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop performing. You stop living for reactions and start living for results. You stop chasing attention and start building something real. And while everyone else is loud, busy, and distracted, you're laying foundations, brick by brick, day by day. No rush, no noise, just progress. This is how lives change. Not overnight, not with big announcements, but with quiet decisions made every single day. Decisions to wake up earlier. Decisions to cut off distractions. Decisions to stay committed when nobody is watching. Decisions to protect your peace and honor your purpose. When you learn the discipline of silence, you gain momentum. And momentum, once it builds, is unstoppable. Let me tell you something about focus, because focus is the difference between wishing and winning. A lot of people say they want more out of life, but their attention is everywhere except where it needs to be. They start the day reacting instead of directing. They check messages, scroll through other people's lives, listen to opinions they didn't ask for, and by the time the day is halfway gone, their energy is already spent. Focus is not just about working hard. It's about working on the right things at the right time. When you decide to truly focus on yourself, you stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. Focusing on you means you take responsibility for where you are without hating yourself for how long it took to get there. You stop blaming your past, your parents, your circumstances, or your mistakes. You accept them, learn from them, and then you move forward. Accountability is empowering when you understand it correctly. It doesn't beat you down, it wakes you up. It reminds you that if your choices got you here, then your choices can also take you somewhere better. Focus begins the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do differently?" When your focus is clear, your priorities change. You begin to value time more than attention, progress more than praise, and peace more than popularity. You realize that not everything deserves a seat at your table. Some habits, conversations, and relationships look harmless, but they quietly steal hours, energy, and clarity. Focus requires elimination. You cannot keep everything and still become who you're meant to be. Growth demands that you let go of what no longer serves the direction you're trying to go. Focusing on yourself also means investing in areas that don't give instant rewards. It means reading instead of scrolling, practicing instead of posting, and learning instead of complaining. These are lonely choices sometimes. Nobody claps when you improve your mindset. Nobody celebrates when you decide to get disciplined with your finances, your health, or your routine. But these quiet investments compound over time. What feels small today becomes the foundation of confidence tomorrow. Distraction is often disguised as opportunity. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. When you're unfocused, you say yes to too much and give your best to too little. Focus teaches you to say no without guilt. It teaches you that every yes costs you something, usually your time or your peace. When you protect your focus, you protect your future. You stop chasing every shiny thing and start building something solid. There will be days when focusing on yourself feels selfish. People will notice you're less available. You don't respond as quickly. You don't engage in unnecessary drama. You don't explain your goals anymore. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. You finally understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to become full first, strong first, clear first. Only then can you truly give without losing yourself. Focus also strengthens your resilience. When you know what you're working toward, setbacks don't stop you, they redirect you. You don't quit because something went wrong. You adjust, you learn, you keep going. A focused mind doesn't panic under pressure. It looks for solutions instead of excuses. It understands that progress is rarely a straight line, and that patience is part of the process. The moment you commit to focusing on you, your life starts to feel different. Not easier, but clearer. And clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Consistency creates results. This is how real change happens, one focused decision at a time, made by someone who finally chose themselves and stayed committed long enough to see it work. Let me talk to you about discipline, because discipline is the bridge between who you are right now and who you say you want to become. A lot of people confuse discipline with punishment, but discipline is actually self-respect in action. It's the decision to show up for yourself even when no one is watching and nothing feels exciting. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about doing what needs to be done on the days you feel tired, unmotivated, or unsure. Those are the days that shape your future more than the easy ones ever will. Most people wait for motivation to get started, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your environment, and your emotions. Discipline doesn't wait. Discipline moves first. It creates momentum, and momentum eventually creates motivation. When you commit to discipline, you stop asking yourself how you feel and start asking what needs to be done. That shift alone separates people who make progress from people who stay stuck dreaming. Discipline requires structure. You cannot grow in chaos and expect consistency. When your days have no order, your mind stays scattered. Discipline brings clarity. It tells you when to wake up, what deserves your attention, and when it's time to rest. It helps you build routines that support your goals instead of sabotaging them. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If your habits are weak, your results will be weak too. But when your habits are disciplined, progress becomes inevitable. One of the hardest parts of discipline is learning to delay gratification. We live in a world that wants everything now. Fast results, quick success, instant recognition. Discipline teaches patience. It teaches you to work today for a reward you might not see for months or even years. That's not easy, but anything meaningful takes time. The life you want is not built in moments of excitement. It's built in long seasons of quiet effort. Discipline keeps you moving during those seasons. Discipline also demands honesty. You have to stop lying to yourself about why things aren't changing. You have to admit when you're procrastinating, making excuses, or choosing comfort over growth. That level of honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You can't fix what you won't face. Discipline looks at your weaknesses and says, we're going to work on this one day at a time, not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Another truth about discipline is that it requires boundaries. You cannot stay disciplined if everyone has unlimited access to you. You have to protect your time, your energy, and your focus. That means saying no to distractions, even when they look harmless. It means turning down invitations, limiting social media, and stepping away from environments that pull you backward. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about keeping yourself aligned with your purpose. Discipline strengthens your confidence in a quiet way. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes self-belief. You stop doubting whether you can follow through because you've proven it to yourself repeatedly. Confidence doesn't come from talking about what you're going to do. It comes from knowing you'll do it, even when it's hard. Over time, discipline changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who finishes, someone who stays, someone who doesn't quit at the first sign of discomfort. That identity shift is powerful. It affects how you walk, how you speak, and how you make decisions. Discipline may feel heavy at first, but eventually it becomes freedom. Because once you master yourself, life stops controlling you. Let me talk to you about growth through discomfort, because this is the part most people avoid, and it's the reason they stay exactly where they are. Everybody wants a better life, but very few people want the uncomfortable process that comes with it. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's often a sign that something is finally changing. When you decide to grow, you step into unfamiliar territory. Your routines change. Your thinking changes. Your circle may change. And all of that feels unsettling at first. Most people mistake discomfort for failure. The moment things get hard, they assume they're doing something wrong and retreat back to what feels safe. But comfort is dangerous. Comfort keeps you stuck in habits that don't challenge you and environments that don't push you. Growth asks you to stretch beyond what you know. It asks you to sit with uncertainty and still move forward. That's not easy, but that's how capacity is built. When you embrace discomfort, you stop running from your weaknesses and start working on them. You begin to face the areas of your life you've been avoiding: your finances, your health, your mindset, your discipline. Growth requires you to look in the mirror without excuses. It forces you to admit where you're inconsistent, where you lack focus, and where you've been settling. That honesty can hurt, but it's also freeing. Because once you see the truth, you can finally change it. Discomfort also tests your commitment. It shows you whether you want results or just the idea of them. Anybody can stay excited when things are new and easy. The real question is who stays when progress is slow and nobody is watching. Growth doesn't give immediate rewards. Sometimes it feels like you're putting in effort and getting nothing back. But something is always happening beneath the surface. Roots grow before anything shows above ground. If you quit too early, you'll never see what your consistency could have produced. There will be moments when growth makes you feel lonely. When you start choosing better for yourself, you may notice that you don't fit in the same way anymore. Conversations change. Interests shift. Some relationships fade. That's not a loss, it's alignment. Not everyone is meant to grow with you. Some people are comfortable where they are, and your growth challenges that. You can't shrink to make others comfortable and still expect to evolve. Discomfort teaches resilience. Each time you push through something hard instead of avoiding it, you become stronger. You realize you can survive challenges you once feared. You stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as training grounds. Growth builds endurance. It prepares you for bigger opportunities by strengthening your character. What feels heavy now is often preparing you for something you're not ready to carry yet. Another truth about growth is that it requires patience with yourself. You will make mistakes along the way. You will have days where you slip back into old habits. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Growth is not a straight line. It's a process. The key is not perfection, but persistence. Getting back on track matters more than never falling off. When you commit to growing through discomfort, you develop a deeper sense of self-respect. You stop avoiding hard conversations with yourself. You stop choosing easy over meaningful. You start trusting your ability to adapt and overcome. Discomfort no longer scares you because you know it's temporary. What you're building, however, lasts. Growth changes you from the inside out. It reshapes how you think, how you react, and how you respond to pressure. You become calmer in chaos and clearer in uncertainty. And before you realize it, the things that once intimidated you no longer have power over you. That's the reward of staying in the discomfort long enough for growth to take root. Let me talk to you about letting people go, because this is one of the hardest but most necessary parts of becoming who you are meant to be. A lot of people carry relationships out of habit, history, or guilt, not because those connections are still healthy or aligned. Just because someone has been with you for a long time doesn't mean they are supposed to go with you into the next season of your life. Growth requires honesty about who adds value to your journey and who quietly drains your energy. Many people are comfortable with the version of you that doesn't challenge them. They like you predictable, available, and unchanged. When you start focusing on yourself, setting boundaries, and raising your standards, it can make others uncomfortable. Some will try to pull you back with jokes, criticism, or guilt. They may say you've changed, you're acting different, or you're forgetting where you came from. But change is the point. You are not meant to stay the same forever. You are meant to evolve. Letting people go doesn't mean you hate them or wish them harm. It means you respect your future more than your past. It means you understand that access to you is a privilege, not a right. Everyone cannot have unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your emotions. When you allow the wrong people too close, they influence your thinking, your habits, and your decisions in ways you may not even notice at first. There are relationships that thrive on comfort but collapse under growth. When you start waking up earlier, working harder, and making different choices, the gap becomes visible. Conversations feel shallow. Values don't align. And instead of motivating you, some people subtly discourage you. Not always intentionally, but through doubt, negativity, or constant distractions. Letting go of those relationships is not betrayal. It's self-preservation. This process can feel lonely. You might question yourself and wonder if you're being too harsh or selfish. But loneliness is often a sign of transition. It means you're no longer who you were, but you haven't fully arrived at who you're becoming. That space can be uncomfortable, but it's also where clarity is formed. In that quiet, you learn to depend on yourself, trust your instincts, and strengthen your inner voice. Letting people go teaches you boundaries. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing understanding from people who don't want to understand. You stop trying to save relationships that are costing you your peace. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They protect what matters most while allowing healthy connections to remain. When your boundaries are clear, your life becomes lighter. There is also a lesson in accepting that some people were only meant to be part of a chapter, not the whole story. They taught you something. They supported you at a certain stage, and that was their assignment. Holding on longer than necessary can turn a blessing into a burden. Gratitude allows you to release people without resentment. You can appreciate what was without forcing what no longer fits. As you let people go, you create space. Space for better habits. Space for healthier relationships. Space for opportunities aligned with your growth. Empty space is not a loss, it's an invitation. It allows new energy, new perspectives, and new connections to enter your life. You can't receive what's meant for you if your hands are full of what you've outgrown. When you choose yourself, you send a powerful message to your future. You tell yourself that your peace matters, your goals matter, and your purpose matters. Letting people go is not about isolation, it's about alignment. And once you align your environment with your direction, moving forward becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Let me talk to you about commitment to yourself, because this is the point where everything either changes or stays the same. Commitment is not a feeling, it's a decision you make long before results show up. It's easy to be committed when you're excited, inspired, and surrounded by encouragement. The real test is what you do when the excitement fades, when progress feels slow, and when nobody is checking on you. Commitment is choosing yourself even on the days you feel unsure. Most people break promises to themselves before they break promises to anyone else. They show up on time for work, for appointments, for other people's needs, but when it comes to their own goals, they negotiate, they delay, they say tomorrow. But every broken promise weakens trust with yourself. Over time, that loss of trust turns into self-doubt. You stop believing you can follow through, not because you can't, but because you haven't. Commitment rebuilds that trust one decision at a time. Committing to yourself means you stop waiting for the perfect moment. There is no perfect time to change your life. There is only the moment you decide to start. Commitment doesn't need ideal conditions, it creates them. You begin where you are with what you have, and you improve as you go. Waiting for clarity before committing is a trap. Clarity comes after action, not before it. Commitment also requires consistency, not intensity, consistency. Big bursts of effort, followed by long breaks, don't change lives. Small actions done daily do. It's the choice to keep going even when the results are invisible. It's waking up early again. It's doing the work again. It's saying no again. Commitment is boring sometimes, it's repetitive. But that repetition builds discipline, and discipline builds freedom. There will be moments when committing to yourself feels uncomfortable. You will have to choose between what feels good now and what will be good later. Comfort will call your name. Old habits will try to pull you back. People may not understand why you're moving differently. That's part of the process. Commitment means you don't abandon your future for temporary relief. You stay the course even when it would be easier to quit. Committing to yourself also means forgiving yourself. You will mess up. You will have off days. You might fall back into patterns you thought you outgrew. Commitment doesn't mean you quit because of a mistake. It means you get back up without turning a slip into a sentence. You correct, you adjust, and you continue. Self-compassion keeps commitment alive. Be firm with your goals, but patient with your growth. When you are truly committed to yourself, your decisions change. You become more intentional with your time. You protect your energy. You stop chasing approval and start chasing alignment. You no longer need constant validation because your actions validate you. Commitment simplifies your life. It removes unnecessary options. It helps you focus on what truly matters. Committing to yourself changes how you carry yourself. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you won't quit on you. You stop doubting every step because you trust your ability to keep moving. That confidence isn't loud, but it's powerful. People feel it, opportunities align with it. Life responds to it. This is how transformation happens. Not through big speeches or dramatic moments, but through daily commitment to becoming better than you were yesterday. When you stay committed to yourself, even in silence, even without applause, you become unstoppable. And once you reach that point, nothing can take away what you've built, because it was earned through discipline, patience, and unwavering belief in yourself.